Welcome back to another recording of the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host, and today we are getting upbeat. We're going to be talking about positivity and how our thought process and attitude affects that and the ones around us. So we're bringing on an expert to talk just on that, Dr. Matthew Arau. He is the president, founder, and CEO of Upbeat Global. He's also a motivational speaker, guest conductor, personal and career coach. And we're super excited to have you on the show today, Matthew. Thanks for being here.
It's a thrill to join you at Elevate Media. Chris, it's just been awesome to get to know you. And I'm excited for this interview.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally got it done. You know, we were talking in the green room before this. We had a lot of hidden misses, different things pop up, all good stuff, minus some health scares on your end. And, but, you're speaking and flying around in our projects. And so finally glad to get this one going. So, to dive right into it, man, like what got you starting Upbeat?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll go back a little bit in time. So I used to be a band director in Colorado back in the day, and I taught middle school band and high school band, and I started a leadership program for my high school students and to transform the culture, which when I took over is a real toxic culture. And we started training on leadership principles and servant leadership, and it really transformed the culture of the band. And that was amazing. And then I went to graduate school and got a doctorate degree in conducting. And while I was doing that, I did more and more research on leadership, and I started presenting on what we had done with my high school band and sharing how other music teachers could take what I had done with my students and implement it in their own programs. So then I started coaching other music teachers, and they elevated their music program through student leadership. Then I started speaking at major conferences, national and international conferences, and started getting invited to speak more and more and train and coach. And over time, I developed my own personal philosophies of leadership, which I call upbeat leadership now.
Yeah.
And it hinges on this idea, this metaphor that we can choose our upbeat in life. And now we all know what the word upbeat means. When you see the word upbeat, you might think like a positive person, right? An uplifting, encouraging person. I think we all need upbeat people in our lives for those hard times, right? Somebody we can lean on. And for some of us, we may be an upbeat person for somebody else, but we all need a support team, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But as a musician, there's another meaning of the word upbeat. And for our listeners that can remember, like tapping your foot, the downbeat is when the foot goes down, the upbeat is when the foot goes up, so 1 and 2 and 3 and. But also as a conductor, we give the upbeat to an ensemble. So imagine you're standing in front of a band, choir, orchestra, your dream group, and you're in front of the ensemble, and you bring your hands up and you breathe in. It's absolutely silent, but the music's about to start. You breathe in. And then when you breathe out and your hands come down, the music starts. But what's so cool is that the conductor and the musicians hear the music in their inner ear before it's created. And so we actually visualize or blueprint what we want to create in the silence. And the upbeat affects so much. Like we can affect the tempo of the music. We can affect the front of the note articulation. We can affect the mood and the energy based on the energy that we bring to our upbeat. So I applied that metaphor to other areas of life. For example, in sports, in football, the throw is the upbeat, the catch is the downbeat.
Yeah.
In basketball, the shot is the upbeat, the swish is the downbeat. In track and field relays, the handoff of the baton is the upbeat, the catch is the downbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And, the way the band, choir, orchestra take the stage is like the upbeat to their performance.
Yeah.
And so then I distilled it down to something very simple I want to share, which is our thoughts are the upbeats to our actions.
Yeah. So
our
true.
attitude is our upbeat to any situation.
Yep.
And we choose our thoughts and our attitude. We choose our upbeat.
Yeah.
And when you reclaim your power, you reclaim your freedom, that it's your responsibility. We can choose how we respond. We can't choose the outside things that might be happening to us in the world,
environment, and
so much unpredictable, and there's so many challenges in life. But one thing we can continue to work on is how we choose to respond, right?
Yep.
And how we put our energy out in the world. So it begins with that, and then from that concept, I developed what I call the 4 C's of upbeat leadership, and a whole program now that I teach, beginning with educators, then school districts, and now athletic departments, executives, corporate business folks, entrepreneurs, because the message is truly universal.
Yeah. Yeah, like you say, we choose, that upbeat, we choose our attitude, we choose our thoughts. But how do someone shift? Maybe
Yeah.
they're in a position where they're upbeat, their thoughts, their attitudes, aren't creating a
Mhm.
positive, you know,
Oh yeah.
a positive position they're coming from. Obviously the environment could be one thing, but if they're not choosing the right thoughts or their attitude, their downbeat is not going to be very positive, right? So how can we go about, maybe if we're struggling to have a good upbeat, changing that?
Yeah, well, I have this book that I came out a few years ago now. It's called Upbeat Mindset, Mindfulness, and Leadership
Hmm.
in Music Education and Beyond. And that keyword is beyond because it goes way beyond music.
Yeah.
And I share just countless strategies because we all need them. I
Yep.
mean, if we're honest, life is a roller coaster,
Right.
and there's always challenges that come our way, trauma, things that we're dealing with. And so it's certainly not a rose-colored glasses or toxic positivity in any way. It's an
Right.
acceptance of the reality of life, and then what do we do moving forward? I'm going to share one
Yeah.
strategy which is really really cool. So when you wake up in the morning, you can be really intentional. At that moment when we wake up, our brain's kind of like in the wave state where it's going to be more accepting, it's more impressionable.
Mm,
So if you can focus on one of 4 things when you first wake up and really focus on a thought for 17 seconds,
okay.
that's enough time for a thought to become sticky. Okay. So I'm
Okay.
going to
Yep.
share. So focus on one of these 4 things. Okay. So when you wake up, think of something that brings you joy.
Okay. Yep.
Number 2, think of something that gives you comfort, and it might even be like the feel of your blanket, or just something that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Number 3 is something that you're grateful for, so
Okay.
gratitude. And then number 4 is, what are you looking forward to that day? So if you can think about one
Mm,
of those 4 things, that starts to do what we call priming the mind. And when you prime the mind when you first wake up, then you start to scan your environment to find other things that are like that. Gratitude is a great example,
yeah.
right? If you can find one thing to be grateful for, your mind will start to notice more. And some people do a gratitude journal where they'll write down 3 things they're grateful for at the end of the day, and that starts to create a mental habit of things to focus on. So that's one really really cool thing, just to start to shift. What's amazing is that our brain takes in 11 million bits of information every second, but we are actually only conscious of 40 bits.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That is crazy.
I mean,
Mind
our
boggling.
brain is incredible, and
Yeah.
so much of those thoughts are going to come into our subconscious mind or automatic thinking. But
Mhm.
if there's 11 million bits that are coming in every second, but we're only conscious of 40 bits, I ask myself this question: well, what if we could choose what 40 bits we
Or
focus on?
right. Yep.
And that's the challenge, and it's about creating new mental habits, new pathways in our mind,
Yeah.
and trying to um, shift our focus. One way to think about it is this:
Mm,
rather than focus on what is wrong, focus on what you want to create.
yeah. Yeah. Because
And that-
even in the hard moments, you'll still find the way to do it, the outcome, the next step. And that is crazy that you put it in the numbers, that many thoughts are happening, but only 40 bits are what we recognize. And I think again, that's why it's so important that we've all heard it. Like, be careful who you surround yourself to, be careful who you listen to, be careful what you listen to or what you watch or what you read. Like, because even if you think it's not affecting your mindset, like the music, the movies, the whatever specifically, like even subconsciously, like you mentioned, those still have an effect. You're just unaware, kind of in the direct right now moment kind of thing.
it's so true. Like, our subconscious mind is affected by what we read, what we
Yep.
see. It doesn't distinguish between reality and fiction. It thinks
Yeah.
it's happening to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Which again, like, so who you surround yourself with, like if they're all complaining about life or their job or what they're doing, or they're not taking the right action, like that subconsciously, like, that'll, like, eke into your, thought process or your mind, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I share this. I actually do this activity with people. I call it positive bumper cars.
Nice.
And anybody listening, if you have a team, this is a really great exercise. I have everybody become what I call a positive bumper car. So you kind of transform yourself. I just take your one hand and make a fist, and then put your other hand around it, sort of like make a diamond with your arms in front of you,
Mhm.
and then you kind of mill around and connect elbows or forearms with somebody, and you look at them, and when you connect, and you just share the first positive thing that pops into your mind about them. And
Nice.
it could be like, "Hey, I love that shirt," or,
Yeah.
"Nice glasses." It could be something, but it's a positive exchange. And then the other person you bump into shares something positive about you, and you both accept the compliment, say thank you, and then you move on and bump into somebody else. And I'll do this game for about 60 to 90 seconds, and then we'll bring it to a close. And at the end of the game, I'll ask people like how they feel. I say like, how does that feel to share positives? How does it feel to receive? And everybody's like so on fire, right? There's like dopamine spikes because you're having this positive exchange. And then I share, well, how many of you'd like to feel this way more often in life? And
Yeah.
everybody's raising their hand. I'm like, and then this is what I drop, like the mic drop moment. I say, well, you know what? You can live this way.
Yeah.
It's a choice. For
Yep.
those 90 seconds, you were just looking for the good in others. And what I've discovered is whatever we're looking for, we'll find.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? So if you look
It
for the
is.
light in somebody else, you really look for it, you can find it.
Yeah.
And when you share it with somebody else, that really lifts their spirits. And then when there's a positive exchange back to you, it's like both of our values get elevated.
Mm.
And I share this is how you create a positive ripple effect.
Right.
Ripple effect of change. And it can be something like maybe you're at the grocery store and you just share something nice to the person bagging the groceries, or the person ringing you up at the counter. Just a smile or something. It's amazing how you can change somebody's day
Yeah.
just with one uplifting act.
Yeah. I think, and that's, it's kind of like you said, building those pathways, those different habits by doing that. And I think it goes back to when we can focus on what we're grateful for, having
Mhm.
that gratitude mindset or that being thankful for things, like that's again where it kind of starts. If you can see it in your own life, it's going to kind of flow outwards towards others as you're seeing it. And I saw this video on social media. This guy will go as he's walking to work or walk into the store or something. He's recording himself, kind of, so you see his hands, and like when he passes someone, he'll try to do some sort of compliment, whether it be their outfit or if they're jamming the music, like, hey, your energy is great. Like, and some people like respond, some people just like kind of brush it off, some people like smile real big, say thank you, and he'll like break it down after, be like, hey, they no response, that's okay, gonna keep going, like, um, because he's kind of breaking that like discomfort of doing that because
Mhm.
talking to someone you don't know and you don't know how to respond with the compliment, and so it's like it was cool to kind of see the progression of him doing that because at first he didn't want to because it got shut down or whatever, but not worrying about it and then seeing the change.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I'll share an experience.
Mhm.
This really is getting out of our comfort zone sometimes
Yeah,
to share
right.
something nice with somebody. Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
Uh-huh.
And so I was working with this one group, and I asked everybody how they felt, and most everybody said, "I feel great." But one person raised their hand. They said, "I feel weird." And I said, "Well, why do you feel weird?" And they say, "Because it feels weird to share nice things with other people
Mm,
because we never do it."
yeah.
Is what he said. I said, "Wow, isn't that a statement?" And then I said, "Well, what kind of world do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a world where it's weird to share nice things and compliments with other people? Or do you want to be a difference maker, a change maker, and help create a world
Yeah,
where this could be normal?" Because
yeah.
there's so many great things happening in the world, but when we turn on the television and we watch the news, of course, it's filled with mostly fear-based news and all
Yep,
this negative stuff. So you think like the
yep.
world is a disaster zone, but that's not true. When we get to know people, there's so much love and caring and compassion in the world, but we just don't focus on it. But if we could shift where our focus goes, we'd realize that for every negative act, there's an equal and positive act happening in the world. It's just where we direct our focus.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, where our focus goes, our attention goes, right? Or what is it?
Yes.
Where our
Yeah, yeah.
focus
And I've
goes.
heard where your focus, where your heart goes, energy flows,
Yeah,
where your
yeah,
focus
yeah.
goes, attention flows. And
Yep.
that really makes a big difference. You asked another way to kind of shift your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to share something. It's chapter 2 in my book.
Yeah.
I call it the power of get.
Okay. Yeah.
And I share this story in the book, and it actually takes me back in time to 9/11.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I was journaling about this during the pandemic, and it led me to this kind of revelation when I started making a to-do list in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I just added one word to my to-do list, and that word was get. And when I added the word get to everything on my to-do list, it shifted the way I thought about it. Even though it was kind of the same thing, I might do every day,
Yeah.
right? Like it was like I get to, you know, uh, email Sarah, I get to call Mark, I get to,
Instead
prepare.
of I need to or I have
Yes,
to.
or
Yeah.
right, or I have to is kind of like the big one that a lot of people think of, like it's
Yeah.
like a checkbox in life.
Uh-huh.
But I shifted it to I get to, and then I added meaning to each of those letters.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, like when you think about life as a series of get tos, why it's powerful is when you realize that I get to, it puts you in the present moment.
Yep.
It makes you realize that you're present now. Like you and I, Chris, we get to have this conversation, this enriching, vibrant conversation now. It's in the
Yeah.
present. And anytime we can be fully present, it shifts our energy in our life. We get much more out of it. The problem is that so many of us are, we're ruminating about the past,
Yeah.
or we're worrying about the future that hasn't
Uh-huh.
happened yet, and we miss what's right in front of us. But
Yeah.
when I shifted my own mindset to think about everything as a get to,
Mm-hmm.
and I call it living in the spirit of get, I also call it the power of get. It's really made a difference. And I've shared this concept around the world, and I've had so many amazing stories come back to me. One of them is really meaningful. It was from a music teacher, and she had studied my book, and then I came out and did a training session on Upbeat, and she said, I'm a mother of 3 daughters. I have a really busy schedule as a music teacher. I'm a wife, all the different hats that I wear. And so much about life seems like you checkbox. You just got to get it done,
Right.
including, and you have kids, so you can
Yeah.
relate to this, including even reading a bedtime story.
Right.
Like I got to get them to bed. Got to get them to bed to
Yep.
get to the next thing. But after she read the book and she was reading one of her daughters a bedtime story, she shifted her mindset. She said, "You know what? I get to read
Mm-hmm.
my daughter a bedtime story because in a couple years, she's
Not
not going to
gonna.
want me to
Yep.
anymore."
Yep.
So every moment is a get to.
It's such a good point. Like, especially if you have kids, like listening to this, you get it. But sometimes we're tired, right? As
Yeah.
parents, and we don't want to pick the kids up one more time because they want to look in the pantry for food. But it's like in those moments where I'm like, no, like I'm not gonna lift you up. It's like, no, like one day you're not going to. They're not gonna want to have you lift them up. They're not gonna want you to read a book or um do all that. And so it's like reminding yourself, like, we get to do this one more time. Like, and eventually you won't, and you'll wish you could. And so it's so important. Like and if you don't have kids, like I find myself doing this when I have to do the stinking dishes, and I just said it right there, I have to do them. So like I get in it because I don't like washing dishes even before we put them in the dishwasher. It's just annoying. So like I try to find myself, I get to do the dishes today. I get to do it. And I still don't like it, but it changes my perspective. And I'll start when I do that, like I know I've noticed this when I say I get to do the dishes, I get to wash these off. My mind will shift a little bit. Like, okay, why did I just say that? Like, I get to do these dishes because I have these dishes to wash. I had the food to put on them where some
Yes.
people don't. Like, it does actually shift it and it's like, okay, this isn't that bad. Like,
Mhm.
play some music, and it'll go by. But like shifting that wording, like almost kind of makes me get out of that selfish mindset of like, oh, I have to do these dang dishes again. And I don't do it every time. I'm not perfect, but like
Sure.
when I can use that wording, it like just kind of flips that switch in my mind to be like, okay, why am I saying I get to because
Yes.
of those reasons? And so
Yeah.
I mean, even in those kind of chores that we take for granted and we get annoyed by, it can still help.
Yeah. So if you take the 3 letters,
Yeah.
GET, G is for gratitude.
Yeah.
And gratitude is magic. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I talk about like taking your vitamin G every day.
Yeah.
It's amazing
Yep.
how, and there's been a lot of research from
Mhm.
the positive psychology movement. In fact, this is one of the first things that was really researched about a
Yeah.
focus on gratitude is really a powerful way to shift our mindset.
Yeah.
E is for enthusiasm
Yep.
and to approach life with enthusiasm. And then T is for treasure,
Yeah. Oh,
to
I like that.
treasure the people in our lives. But one of the hidden treasures I think a lot of us forget about, especially we're really focused on serving others and supporting others, and if we're parents or
Yeah.
team leaders, or we're always
Yep.
focused, or teachers, we're focused on everybody else. But what I realize is the hidden treasure is the treasure within
Mm.
us. Each
Yep.
one of us is a treasure. Each
Yep.
listener to this podcast, you are a treasure, and you have a brilliant light within you to shine forth. And that's so important, because when you shine brightly, you inspire others to shine their own light. And so often in life, I think there's like these suppressing forces,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's our peer group or even family members, like we want to like rise and shine, and people are like, no, 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 dim your light, don't stand out too much.
Yep.
Right, and many of us can probably remember from school, the kind of that ceiling, like, oh, you don't want to shine too much,
Right.
right? And what I want to share is that yes, shine,
Yeah.
shine. That's what we need the world to do. We need people that are going to embrace fully who they are and go all in.
Yeah.
Because if we can all do that and find, our inner gifts, and that we are a treasure, it can change so much. This leads me to the topic of self-talk.
Oh yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one. And
Before we dive into self-talk, you made me think when you're talking about shining, like
yeah.
the people who have the positive attitudes, positive, words towards other, they're that light, right? But
Yeah.
everyone's a diamond. But the only time
Mhm.
a diamond shines and sparkles is when a light shines on it, projects on it, right? So you have to have and be that light so others can shine sometimes. Uh, and I just that really stuck out and popped in my head when you were saying that. Like everyone's a diamond, like
I love
everyone's a piece of gold, everyone's a diamond. But the only time it shimmers and shines is when some light projects itself onto it and allows them to illuminate. Otherwise, they're just no one sees it. So I thought that
wow,
was really like that just popped in my head when you were saying that. That is cool. So
I love
wanted
that.
to share that. Yeah.
I
So,
love
'cause
that.
not everyone's alike. Some people just don't wanna project that out there, and that's okay, but the ones who
Yeah.
are can help all the diamonds and pieces of gold out there shine, so.
No, I love that. Yeah, and I think about diamonds are made from extreme pressure.
Mhm. Yep.
And sometimes, well, often life is hard,
Yeah.
and we're under a lot of pressures and anxieties, and it seems like maybe we're under more pressures than we've ever been before. I mean,
Right.
but what I found, and I don't know if you found this to be the case, is often through the greatest struggles, we find the greatest lessons,
For sure.
or the challenges become opportunities. In some languages, challenge and opportunity are the same word, which
Yep.
I think is
Yeah.
really
Uh-huh.
fascinating. So
Yep.
you just shift it like this is a challenge. Yeah, it's also an opportunity. What are you going to do with it? And
Yeah.
that's sort of like the entrepreneurial mindset too, right?
Yeah.
Here's this challenge that people are facing. Okay, but how can we now provide a solution to that to help support people?
Right.
And I think that's a really cool way of looking at it. So I'm really glad
Yep.
you brought up the idea of the
Yeah.
diamond.
For sure. So, but yeah, and part of that, to be able to shine or to be able to, show your true sparkle is it starts with us, right? Our self talk, like you're going to get into, and how crucial self talk is. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this.
Yeah, well, let me ask you a series of questions, Chris.
Yeah,
Um, do you think it's valuable or important to treat others with kindness?
for sure.
Do you think it's important to treat others with compassion?
Yep,
Do you think, even though it can be difficult to find the space in your heart do you think it's important to forgive others?
yep, definitely.
Now I'm going to go deeper. Is that okay? All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
So Even though you think it's important to treat others with kindness, would you agree that sometimes you don't extend that same kindness to yourself?
Yep,
Even though you think it's important to treat others with compassion, would you agree that sometimes you don't extend that same compassion to you?
for sure.
Even though you think it's important to forgive others, do you sometimes find the hardest person, maybe the last person you can forgive is you?
Yep.
And you're not alone.
Right.
You're not alone, and I imagine for many of our listeners, kind of the same idea, because we can be really, really hard on ourselves.
Yep.
And, they say the research says that on average, 80% of our self-talk is negative.
Mm,
Isn't that's shocking, isn't it?
yeah.
So what's the solution? And this is what I want to share. And this is every day it's a practice. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that like we can achieve mastery on this all of a sudden, like you just shift from one side to the other, but it's
Right.
something we can work on it starts with the personal awareness of being aware of what we're saying to ourselves. So what I like to share is treat yourself like you are your best friend.
Mm,
So if you catch yourself saying something mean or diminishing to yourself, now go outside yourself and say, well, if a friend was saying that out loud, what would I say back to them to
right.
encourage them? And how would I shift my language? And so that's a really powerful practice
Yeah.
to work on. It's in alignment with the idea of affirmations, but
Right.
it's literally catching ourselves in the act and shifting it from maybe what we might call a fixed mindset to a growth mindset.
Mm,
And one of the ways you can do this, if you're facing a challenge and you're like, "Oh, I'm not good enough. I'll never be able to do this." Um, they said I wasn't going to, and this is just a self-fulfilling prophecy. What you can do is find something in your life when you did push through a challenge
mhm.
and
Yep.
say, "You know what?
Anchoring
I've
to
done it
that.
before. You've done it before. You're going to find a way."
Yep.
You might need to ask for help, find different resources, um, but you're going to find a way. You're going to
That's
find a
good.
solution.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think that's important, like, anchoring to those past accomplishments and, like, remembering, like, "Hey, this is where we've been through already." Like, you know, "We get through this one. We're gonna figure this next thing out," you know? Um, but why do you think it is so hard for people to extend themselves the kindness, the grace, the compassion that we do easier to others? Why do you think it's so hard for us to do it to ourselves?
I think we have a lot of voices kind of planted in our head
Yeah,
from when we were younger.
sure.
I've heard that our subconscious mind is, really filled with material from ages 0 to 7,
Phew.
and we really internalize a lot that comes at us. And so if there were like things said to us growing up, we've implanted them, and we still have that subconscious foundation
Mm,
that kind of guides our thinking today.
yeah,
So um, that's part of the process, is almost like reprogramming our subconscious mind. But it
right.
begins with awareness. That's why I really coach a lot on mindfulness
Mhm.
and meditation, and kind of getting to that place where you can look within and start to see what your common thought process are, and then shift it with
Yeah,
intention, being real
yeah,
intentional.
I love that. And, yeah, I think that's kinda where it can start too, and, this whole, conversation been great, and, so much goodness that people can take away and start implementing, and, we probably heard some of this before, but actually implementing it and taking it into heart, like, now is the time, you know?
Yeah.
Best time to plant a tree was yesterday. Next best time is today, right? So, to start planting this positivity tree in our lives, if today's the best time to do it. So, um, again, Matthew, you've been a great conversation. Super glad to have you on here. I would love for you to share, where can people connect with you, learn more about Upbeat Global? And I know you got some cool things coming out. Where's the best place people can go and find all that?
Awesome. Yeah. So my website is upbeatglobal.com. And that's chock full of resources. And you can contact me there. You can subscribe to our Upbeat newsletter. On Facebook, you can follow me at Matthew Arau. And you can also join my Facebook group, which is really vibrant and very supportive. And I post every single day, lots of like quotes from my book, but it's also interactive. It's called Upbeat Leaders.
Okay.
a request to join. We have close to 3,000 members right now, and it's just constantly growing. But people
awesome.
go there every single day. They say it makes a huge difference in their life.
That's awesome.
And you can connect with me on Instagram also, either Matthew Arau or Upbeat Global on Instagram. And I'm on LinkedIn at Matthew Arau as well. And I'd love for you to check out my book.
Yeah.
You can find Upbeat Mindset, Mindfulness, and Leadership through my website. You can also get it on Amazon. It's paperback. It's also on Kindle on Amazon. And very excited. Probably by the time this is released, because coming out about December 17, we are releasing follow-ups to the book.
Awesome.
And these are absolutely universal. So they speak to everyone. And one is called the Upbeat Daily Journal. And it's for inspiration and transformation through personal reflection. And then the Upbeat Daily Planner, the ultimate guide for your get-to-dos. Just incredible. So looking forward to those releases. They're coming out in time for the holidays. Great stocking stuffers.
Yeah.
And you can get those through Amazon, and also through my website. And another place you can get them is through GIA Publications.
Okay.
And so you can just Google GIA Publications, because that's the publisher, and folks can get it directly through there. Coming out in March is going to be the Upbeat Leadership Workbook.
Awesome.
It's going to be fantastic as an accompaniment. And the audiobook has been recorded. It's just in production now. So many exciting things.
That's awesome.
Coming up. And I just love to get connected with your listeners so you can become part of the Upbeat movement, the Upbeat community. And I'm looking for people that want to be Upbeat certified to really take the show on the road. I've presented in 40 states and 4 continents over the last 10 years. And there's folks all over the world that want to do what I'm doing, right? To be an Upbeat coach, to be an Upbeat speaker. And that's the next level that we're looking at too. Plus, I love coming and working with teams and organizations to help support them and elevate their Upbeat. And it's led to incredible cultural and leadership transformation. So that's really a true passion of mine.
Awesome. Well, everyone definitely get connected with Matthew. Check out all he's doing. Get in this community. And again, Matthew, thanks so much for being on the Elevate Media podcast today.
What a treat. Thanks so much, Chris.
Absolutely. And if you're listening to this and you know someone who's, trying to get a little bit more upbeat or maybe needs to get upbeat, share this with them. We can help so many more people by sharing this out together. So thank you for that. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, though, continue to elevate your life, elevate your brand, and we'll talk to you again soon.